Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Yesshift. This time it's another Steven's Vinyl Adventures episode focusing on the newly released Yes from a Page expanded and remastered edition. My vinyl copy came in the mail yesterday and I've given it a listen. I even listened to it when it hit the official channels on Friday, April 24th, which funny enough was also the 40th anniversary of the first GTR album. So I actually gave that another listen that day. But yeah, I've listened to this album, this expanded edition. I have some thoughts on it. And Dad and I are going to be we're planning to talk about Union tomorrow, April 30th, 6 p.m. Pacific. But I figure, we really got to talk about this newly released Yes album expanded edition first, because it would be very silly for a Union episode to come out before talking about that. I felt when this is like out here now. So that's what's going on now and really excited to talk about this because this is an album that is considered a lost Yes album. There may be a few other albums that could have that sort of label. The Keys to Ascension albums, how those studio tracks are buried under the live tracks, and Dad has called Open Your Eyes a Lost Yes album because of the lack of live representation. And I think you could even, I mean, there's the Benoit David version of Fly From Here, which has been out of print for a while. But with Mercury Studios having acquired the post 2000 Yes catalog, I kind of have hopes that maybe they'll do a re release of that version at some point. We don't know if they are. We know that from the interview I did with Oliver Wakeman recently that there's going to be a Live from Leon re release. It's in early stages. And Mercury also put out Symphonic Live earlier this year, and they're working on releasing the re-release of Magnification, supposedly sometime later this year. And I know that they also put out vinyl versions of House of Yes, which was technically released in 2000, and I think ARW Live at the Apollo. So very curious to see what more they put out. I expect we'd get Live from Leon first before any sort of Live from Here re-release. But yeah, this album, and I'll show photos of that I took prior of this copy, but this features the lineup of Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Alan White, Oliver Wakeman, and Benoit David. And this is basically Oliver going back to that 2019 From a Page release, which was originally a 4-track EP, I guess you could consider it, and trying to imagine what would the full album version from this lineup have been, and based on what's available. And I think it's a very admirable effort what he's done here, using what he has, the resources, and it does feel like a full album, like as if it was put together around the time that it was recorded, and like very well, like if someone listening to Yes for the first time, you could probably show them this album, not give them the context, and they think, oh wow, this came out then with that lineup. It's that good in my opinion. So we'll go ahead and let's see, what do I want to begin with first, the photos or the track list? So I'll show the photos. I got a slideshow here. All right, so this is the hype sticker that showed up on my vinyl copy. 180 GM, 2LP, 33 and a third RPM, half speed remaster, expanded edition featuring the original 4 songs along with alternate versions and demos, and it certainly does And this is another sticker that says made in Germany. That was on the plastic wrap that was around this thing. And there you have the front cover of this of the vinyl jacket. I really love this album cover. And in the inside, you get to see that fold out and this big artwork. A couple closer shots, you see that on the arches, there's a pair of people up here on this arch, and then 5 others over here. And Yes fans are very quick to speculate whether the people featured in these things represent certain band members. I think we've been guilty of that. So you got like 5 people here. So is that the 5 people of the lineup? And maybe you've had people speculate, oh, could this be John and Rick over here or something? And oh, here's the other side of it. You got that architecture. And here you have the back cover. So, like I said, this is 2 LP. On LP1, side A, you have To the Moment, The Man You Always Wanted Me to Be, alternate version. And alternate version is in very tiny letters. So, someone who's unfamiliar reading this for the first time might not even realize, oh, this is an alternate version of an already existing song. And then From the Turn of a Card into the Storm alternate version. And you get the run times here. To the Moment is 6 minutes 12. The manual is B is 5 minutes and 4 seconds. For the Turn of a Card is 3 minutes 22 seconds. And Into the Storm is 6 minutes and 53 seconds. LP1 side B is Aliens alternate version, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Hour of Need alternate version, 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Words on a Page, 6 minutes 16 seconds. The Gift of Love, 9 minutes of 51. And then LP2 side C, so you get to the bonus stuff now. Words on a Page demo, 3 minutes of 44 seconds. The Man You Always Want Me to Be demo, and that is 4 minutes 45 seconds. To the Moment demo, 4 minutes and 56 seconds. And then LP2 side D, The Gift of Love demo, that's 9:51. Don't Take No for an Answer demo, 2 minutes and 9. Updraft demo, it's 2 minutes and 10. And To the Moment single mix, 4 minutes and 23 seconds. What I find interesting about the bonus stuff here, the way it's listed here, is whenever there are Yes re-releases, or I'm thinking back to the Rhino remaster days in the early 2000s, typically the bonus tracks on those would begin with single versions and then go into the demos. But here you end with a To the Moment single mix, which I think is refreshing because you end with a stronger, more fully formed sounding track. Obviously, it's a shorter version of the original track. And you kind of bookend the album with those 2 versions of that bombastic song. And here you have the lineup. You got Oliver, Chris, Benoit, Alan, and Steve. And looking down here, you see how they're listed. And this is the sleeve of LP1 that I'm holding here in this picture. The way that they're listed, you might notice that they're listed in order of when they joined Yes. So you have Chris Squire, bass and vocals, Steve Howe, guitar and vocals, Alan White, drums, Oliver Wakeman, keyboards and vocals, and Benoit David, lead vocals. And I see we have comments. I'll get to those. MP, the new guy, says, in reference to the pair of people, the new guy says it could be Horn and Downs too. Yeah, I guess that's also a possibility. But for all we know, it could just be figures in Roger Dean's art. But yeah, maybe something to ask Roger Dean. And Mark Wachter is tuning in from Fergus, Ontario, Canada. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. And later in the show, I'll get to comments from people about this remastered and expanded edition that I saw were on the post I made earlier. I'll read some of those. And then this is the backside of the sleeve of LP1. You got the lyrics to all of the songs, and you also got the individual websites for each of the members, including those no longer with us. So you got Alan's website, alanwhite.net, and for Chris, you have the Facebook page. And down here it says, in memory of Chris Squire and Alan White. It's very wild to think that out of this lineup on this album, only one member is in the current lineup right now, Steve Howe. And it really makes this album feel like it was ages and ages ago. And the time period 2010 to 2011, it really was a long time ago if you think about it. It's kind of scary to think about. And then here's a record itself of LP1, side A and side B. And then this is the sleeve of LP2. You got this essay that Oliver put detailing his history with the band and then putting this together. This is LP2, the first side and the second side. So, yeah, and I really enjoyed reading the essay that Oliver put here. He tells a story, he starts from the beginning. And I think that whole thing of putting an essay on the LP sleeve, I think has been done with another Yes record before, maybe the Talk LP, if I'm not mistaken. But I really enjoyed this read. I think it might have been maybe a 20-minute read for me because I was so engrossed in it and just wanted to read every single word. So Oliver begins from when he got the call from Steve Howe about the offer to join Yes, and being told that his wife apparently had a feeling that he was going to be asked to join Yes. And it's a really funny story. And apparently John Anderson was in charge of sending Oliver the set list. So it did kind of make me wonder if the process of putting together the set lists when John was in the band, would John list out the songs that he feels he'd be able to sing and remember the lyrics to, and then filter that through the rest of the band, and have them say whether or not they want to do it. It just makes me curious about that process. And he goes through, how he had been part of 2 Yes lineups and hadn't performed with them yet. So that's an interesting way to look at it. And then there's the talking about the touring and the recording sessions. And he during the Fly From Here period, you have a fast forward to after he's let go from the band, and then the mention of Chris passing and the Oliver's tweet about the songs that he I remember, I think this might be the tweet I saw back in the day where he was asked by someone about the songs that he worked on during that time period in the early 2010s. Maybe it was Henry Potts who asked about it, and then Oliver answered about it. And Oliver saying, these are the songs that I have. And then Yes Management got in touch with him, and he talked with Steve Howe, and then put together From a Page. And he's praising how technology, how far it's come, and how it's allowed him to work on this stuff. And it's a really great story. I really enjoyed reading this. There were a couple other things that I don't remember if I was aware of. He talks about some stuff here that he talked about in the interview about the process of putting the songs together, getting Alan's drums that he recorded for, I think it was take of, maybe it was from a jam or a take of The Gift of Love. Yeah, it says, while listening to the drums on The Gift of Love, I realized they were pretty much the same tempo as Aliens. Um, and he studied all the takes for that track. So yeah, and he got the blessings of Gigi and Scotty, Alan's wife and Chris's wife. So that was really nice. And he says, throughout this process, I stayed in touch with Benoit. Unfortunately, he still wasn't able to sing to the level he wanted, so he couldn't record his original harmony vocal for Aliens, that is. So um, he also came across a half written track that he and Steve had been working on, and this track was called I Stole the Moon. He says, I managed to finish it musically, but Benoit's vocal issues meant we couldn't complete it for release, which was a shame. And man, I really wish that it could have been possible to complete that, because I'm really curious about how that song sounds. I'd really love to hear it. Ideally with Benoit, but I do kind of wonder, could he do it with another vocalist, or would he even want to do that? But either way, I'd really like to hear the song. And he also mentioned here there is another song called it had the word history in it. What was it? Was it History on Both Sides? Maybe it was. Yeah. So during the 2010 Phoenix writing sessions, we worked on a track I'd started called History on Both Sides. Steve added a chorus part and we recorded it on an old dictaphone. The quality was poor, so it isn't included, though I may revisit it with Steve in the future. Yeah, I think this was a track he alluded to in the interview I did with him. And to have him put here that he may revisit it with Steve in the future, that's really great to hear. Throughout this whole process, you get the sense that Steve is very generous here. Oliver has talked about, meeting with Steve and having him listen to these tracks and these mixes, and Steve saying like the keyboards need to be heard. And so that was very nice of him. And props to Steve for giving that type of feedback and letting Oliver go forward with the mixes as they are. So really appreciative of that. Yeah, so a real great essay. Oliver wrote this in September 2025. So great nuggets here, definitely worth the read. So I guess next up, I should go through the tracks and that whole listening experience. Now, playing the vinyl records on my record player, there were a couple pops here and there on my end, but nothing too crazy. Overall, the sound quality was amazing. I really enjoyed listening to these tracks on record, because previously I'd had the CD version, which came in a clamshell box set, a little box set, and included the Live from Leon CDs, which whenever that gets re-released, I'll probably go for the vinyl version of that. And, fingers crossed that Oliver can work out the rights to the footage from that and have that included, but we'll see. It'll be a good re-release either way. So, of course, obviously it begins with To the Moment, very bombastic opening track. This really made an impression on me 6-7 years ago when it first came out as a single, and then we got to hear the full version on the album. Really bombastic, really attacking feel, attacking with music, yes, in full force. Great choice of opening track back then, and it still is now. Then you have The Man You Always Wanted Me to Be, which Oliver mentioned he kind of wanted it to be called The Man You Always See in Me, but got outvoted there. I think he even referred to it with that title in the interview. Um, so this was kind of different from the Fly From Here version in that you get to hear Oliver provide the gentle piano that's like very early on. Um, and I think between this version and the Fly From Here version, whether it be the original or return trip, I prefer this version here ever so slightly. It's not too different, but I think I quite like those gentle bits that Oliver provided here. Then you have From the Turn of a Card, um, and this is a great choice to slot after the manual is on me to be, or rather, it was a good choice to slot the manual is on me to be between To the Moment and From the Turn of a Card. I'm kind of used to the original version where we go from words on the page into From the Turn of a Card and into The Gift of Love. So at the end of this Benoit and Oliver duet piece, really great. I was kind of I'm so used to it going into The Gift of Love that I was kind of surprised when Into the Storm started. And Into the Storm is one of those Yes songs that to me feels like it has a really abrupt opening, like it kind of similar to I Would Have Waited Forever. Like it just comes in right away with do 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 do. Um, and on the original, or on both the Fly From Here and Return Trip versions, I guess you could kind of hear the the that sound, but here instead you hear the keyboards going um, and kind of reminds me of that Yes vein that I hear in stuff like Revealing Signs of God, and it's the keyboards are very present throughout this, and you even get the do 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 do. I think this is the most noticeably different alternate version from the main track list, at least. Alternate version of Fly From Here tracks, and yeah, I do prefer this over either of the Fly From Here versions. Great to hear Benoit's voice here again, and I still get really into the Army of Angels section. I think that's really cool. Got a really cool edge to it. But something that kind of broke my immersion of listening to this album with the idea that this imagine that this is the album that might have come out instead of Fly From Here or maybe slightly before Fly From Here. Something that kind of broke my immersion is that toward the end you still have Benoit singing "And we can fly from here," and to me it feels a little bit out of place because on the Fly From Here album it works because it's a callback to the Fly From Here suite at the beginning of the album, and Into the Storm is at the end, so it's kind of bookends there. So I did kind of wonder if maybe it would have been too tricky to remove that bit from this song, or if Oliver just wanted to still keep it in because it's still more of Benoit singing. But yeah, that was kind of just a little bit that broke my immersion, but it's just a minor nitpick, just Yes fan getting into the minutia of it all. It's a great sounding song, and I think the one that has stuck with me the most from this re-release, having listened to these newer versions and re-listened to the From a Page tracks that were already here. I think Into the Storm alternate version has been entering my head more often than the rest. Really great tracks. And MP, the new guy, says, I agree with the Fly From Here part. I thought that was out of place too. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I suppose maybe he could have put Into the Storm without that bit, and then as a bonus track, maybe put Into the Storm with the Fly From Here bit as one of the bonus tracks. But then again, not sure that that would have fit on the LPs. Or I don't know, maybe I'd have to add the run times, but I can see how it would have felt like overkill to put two versions of that with and without that little bit. So then after yesterday taking LP1 off of the record player and then taking out LP2 and putting that on, I hear Aliens, and the beginning of that felt a bit abrupt to me too. So it's kind of like you back to back, you get Into the Storm beginning abruptly at the end of one LP, and then Aliens beginning abruptly at the beginning of the next LP. Oh, and I see Chris Berry chiming in the comments saying Into the Storm live and Oliver's recent set really rocked. It was wild. Man, I'm sure that was amazing. I really hope that there's a live recording of one of those concerts that gets released at some point. So Aliens, I kind of miss the beginning of the Squacket version, the or however it goes. You get a bit of music before going into the vocals. But to be fair, I feel like the objective was to have this version of Aliens sound closer to the In the Present tour version where it was first played. So I totally get that line of thinking. And, like just a moment ago, I was thinking about how that Fly From Here bit and Into the Storm broke my immersion, but this is trying to bring you into that immersion. So I commend that for sure. But either way, it just kind of feels like it has an abrupt beginning. It's probably the most different out of the tracks that are on this album, which I guess is kind of fitting. You have a track called Aliens, and it feels so alien from the rest of the tracks. I could kind of see it being a conspiracy track, honestly, but it still sounds great. Having Chris singing on that, and the manual always wanted me to be, he has such a great voice. I see Davey Crichton chiming in saying, I saw Yes play Aliens at Westbury Music Fair in Long Island, New York. It received polite applause. Yeah, I feel like Aliens is a song that some Yes fans are very mixed on. I remember when we posted it on our page a while back, there were people here and there who are like, why post this song? And it's like, well, we're posting this for Chris Squire, like in Chris Squire's honor. It's kind of silly to be so upset about the song, but I do like the mysteriousness of it, even if it is different from the rest of the album. And it's a nice time capsule, which, funny enough, it talks about time machines. But yeah, glad to have that on here. And then we get the alternate version of Hour of Need. So I guess if you've listened to the Fly From Here version, you know that Oliver is credited on that song, and I guess this confirms that he does do the and there's a bit of that earlier in the song as well. And this is the 3-minute length, so it doesn't have that extended instrumental intro and outro that appeared on the Japanese bonus track of Fly From Here in 2011 and then on Return Trip in 2018, which is fine. I think when it comes to the instrumental intro and outros on those versions, I always felt that those sounded more like Asia, which I guess is fitting. You got Jeff Downes there, and his and the heaviness of it kind of felt like Asia. And on the longer version, I do really like the instrumental intro, but when the instrumental outro comes in, it kind of feels to me like, really, we're going back here now after it ended so beautifully with sink or swim. And, I kind of feel like it could have ended just there. It kind of reminds me of the studio run through of Gates of Delirium, where you go from the heavy instrumental stuff, then into Soon, and then in that studio run through, Soon is followed by a return to the do 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 do. And Yes eventually figured out that we really should just end it with the end of Soon, which was the right call. But yeah, the instrumental intro on the Fly From Here versions, I dig. The outros, I'm kind of, I don't know about this. Kind of feels like it was longer than it needed to be. But here it's just the softer 3 minute length, I guess, because that's the segment that Oliver was primarily involved with. And Davey says Oliver is a monster player and composer. I'm extremely impressed with his work on the newly expanded version of From a Page. Yeah, definitely. And then we get to Words on a Page. So going from Hour of Need to Words on a Page, it feels very seamless. Those moods of those songs. It would have felt jarring, I think, if Hour of Need had that heavy outro and then went into Words on a Page. But here it's very wonderfully done. And Words on a Page, I've always admired the lyrics of that song and the journey that the music takes you. Some pretty guitar parts. And then, like I said, I'm so used to the original From a Page CD track list that after Words on a Page, I was kind of expecting From the Turn of a Card, but then we get into The Gift of Love, and it's like, oh, okay. And I mean, The Gift of Love is my favorite From a Page track, and I think still my favorite out of the expanded track list. Davey says Words on a Page has a beautiful melody. Oliver's piano playing on it is spectacular. Yeah, I agree. It's very beautiful. But yeah, ending with The Gift of Love. And that is always, that's one of those Yes songs that gets me emotional when I listen to it. For me, it's in the same category as And You and I and A Living Island. It's a great track and a great way to conclude the main track list. And of course, there's that callback to the moment with From the Moment of Awakening. So, love this song. All right, so then we get to the demos. So you get Words on a Page, which, like I said, is a very short demo. And the manual is On Me to Be and To the Moment. And I really like how these demos, they don't feel, they feel like the band is getting there. They're trying to work out some stuff. You get the sense of where they are in the forming of the songs. And I quite like this. It's a bit of history, and it's really great to have these bits of history where we're like, okay, let's go behind the scenes of these songs. Like, how were they before they were completed? I love that stuff when it comes to Yes re-releases, and you have those earlier versions and get to see the genesis of the songs. Then on the other side of that LP, you get the Gift of Love demo as well. And uh, yeah, really enjoyed hearing that. And then Don't Take No for an Answer, that demo is sung by Benoit David. And it sounds amazing. I'm really happy we got yet another track with his singing on it, possibly the most surprising inclusion here. And you do kind of like if you play this track, it feels like it's a complete version to my ears anyway. Like it feels complete enough. Like it could have been on the Fly From Here album. The bit that I find kind of missing, just because I'm so used to the Return Trip version of the song with Steve Howe singing, is the keyboards. I guess Jeff's keyboards being But even without that, this still feels like a fully formed track. It doesn't feel so much like a demo like these other demo tracks here. So that was quite surprising in terms of the quality of it. Yeah, just loved hearing. I've always been a defender of Steve Howe's singing. I quite like hearing him sing "Don't Take No for an Answer" and some of the other solo songs he's done on his albums. But hearing Benoit sing "Amidst these mountains again, I realize," it's like, oh wow, Benoit's back in a way, in a roundabout way, pun intended. So yeah, and then you get Updraft, which is a 2-minute instrumental jam type of thing. Owen Davey says 100%. I like Benoit singing this song. But Updraft is an instrumental and basically what became the Army of Angels section on Into the Storm. You get the do 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 do, and on the keyboard to get do 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 do. And Updraft is a very clever title because, as Oliver explains, in words probably better than mine, is that an updraft is when certain type of air like rises up to fuel a storm. So it's kind of like this is a prelude to what would become Into the Storm. So very fitting that title, Updraft. And then you get the To the Moment single mix, which was the first ever bit of From a Page we ever heard. This was in the music video that accompanied the release and cuts out, I think, the single mix, if I remember right. It doesn't include the bit of Oliver doing like a sort of detour on the keyboards, like do 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 do, like it kind of cuts out that bit. But yeah, it's a really great way to end this expanded edition. End it bombastically rather than with something that feels not quite finished and in early stages. So I thought that was a smart choice with the track list. Now, when it comes to, I kind of want to step back when it comes to what were my expectations for this album. And there's a comment that I saw from someone else that I kind of want to read that reminded me of this. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I might have to go to my phone for this. Yeah, I feel like these days they make it kind of harder to look at the post where it was shared. But anyway, I'll figure that out. All right, let's see. Well, I'll read some of the comments that I see here in the meantime. Leon Alvarado, I posted like, what does everyone think of this expanded and remastered edition? Leon Alvarado says, I love it. Yeah, great to hear from you, Leon. Interviewed him about The Wicked Forest earlier this year, his album that also includes people from Yes, as well as Johnny Bruns. Let's see. Joey Wise said it's really interesting. I prefer a lot of how the tracks came out on Fly From Here and Return Trip, but it's very cool to hear Oliver's parts and a new sequencing for all of that material. Okay, so you prefer the Fly From Here versions. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder like what percentage of fans prefer the Fly From Here versions or prefer the From a Page expanded versions. Let's see. And then we get John Kuhn, who says it's a true gem. Ray Reithmeyer says, my copy arrived yesterday. It's great. Daniel Crone says, honestly, I love it. In fact, I wish this was released in 2019, but oh well. Standout tracks, ignoring the 4 songs on From a Page 2019 as they're still amazing. The Man You Always Wanted Me to Be demo, I kind of like how different this version is, almost has an All Good People vibe about it. Into the Storm 2026. While I still prefer the 2011 version, this one is kind of cool with some amazing keyboard work from Oliver. Don't Take No for an Answer demo. Benoit singing is for this is amazing. Yeah, it certainly is. Okay, here's the comment I was looking for. Stephen Brosia says, I got through the first 5 tracks. I'm on the fence so far on the Fly From Here remasters. I like how Oliver's keys were brought forward, but I feel like the drums get muddy in places. Into the Storm almost has a totally different syncopation. I'd almost rather just build a playlist of the original Fly From Here and From a Page tracks in the new album order. So this this reminded me of how whenever the track list for this expanded and remastered edition was announced, I kind of did an experiment where I listened to the tracks from a Page and the Benoit David versions of the Fly From Here tracks from the 2011 album. So I would listen to the Moment, The Manual Is on Me to Be from 2011, and then From the Turn of a Card, and then Into the Storm from 2011. Then for Aliens, I listened to one of the videos from the In the Present tour, an audience shot video, and then the 2011 Hour of Need, the short version, and then Words on a Page and The Gift of Love. And when I tried that experiment, listening to those versions of the tracks together, it felt to me like the From a Page tracks, the ones that had been released in 2019, it felt to me like those were quite clearly the best of the tracks. They're a level above the Fly From Here tracks that were mentioned in the track list. So I was super excited to hear this expanded version, and then I did that experiment, and then suddenly I was thinking to myself, are these tracks from Fly From Here, like, they're not, are they going to be that different? Is it going to kind of feel like, the full version of this album? Is it going to feel like those tracks dilute the album? The From a Page tracks are the standouts, but the Fly From Here tracks kind of feel like a step down in a way. And will it be a case that the From a Page EP really is the best version, just those 4 tracks, the best of the best, lean and just, trimmed down to what you need? But having listened to this album with these alternate versions of those tracks, to me, they do sound, the Fly From Here tracks, the alternate versions, they sound better here to me, even if slightly, or even if like a leap, like Into the Storm, which kind of surprised me, but in a way also not, because when it comes to the Fly From Here album, I kind of feel that the Fly From Here suite is the stronger half of the album. It feels like they put all their work and focus into that, Trevor Horn really focusing in on that. And then the second half, it kind of feels like it goes down a step, even though I like those songs. There's maybe a bit more that could have been done. And here we see like a little bit more from Oliver. So surprisingly, this was definitely a better experience than my personal experience of listening to the From a Page tracks and the 2011 Fly From Here tracks and that Aliens live recording, because here all together they sound more cohesive and like it's all one unit for the most part. Like I said, Aliens is kind of a different track, but still sonically it sounds great. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that. I see there are more comments here. Davey says any version of To the Moment is good, but the full version is phenomenal to me. Levi Williams says Oliver is a true genius and a very nice person. From a Page is one of my favorites in the Yes catalog. And then Davey says, to me, it's the best thing under the Yes banner since Magnification. Thoughts, Stephen, Levi, anyone else? You know, that's a good question. I've said before that From a Page has some of the best Yes music of the last few decades. There's stuff that I still definitely really enjoy on the recent albums like The Quest and Mirror to the Sky. And I even listened to Aurora after giving this expanded edition and its tracks a couple listens. And Aurora still sounds like a good track to me. So I'm looking forward to that next Yes album. But yeah, that's a really good question. I do think the From a Page EP is that 25-minute or however long it is, feels like it has no filler, like it just is all the great stuff. So I think there's an argument there that that could be the best since Magnification. But with the expanded edition, like I've said, the alternate versions do not dilute the From a Page album like I was kind of worried that it might. Like they sound really good, but yeah, that's a good question I'll have to keep in mind. Is this my favorite post Magnification? But yeah, something to think about. It's definitely really impressive. Really enjoy having this. So I'll read some more comments that I see from earlier. Doug Curran said, "Love it. Got the 2 CD box set." Um, let's see. There's so many. I'll just read some of these. Ian Barber says, I love it. This again makes me wish of an alternate universe where this lineup kept going. Yeah, I definitely would have. Um, I enjoy the Fly From Here suite, but it's still like this really makes one curious. Like, what would Yes have come up with, or how different would the songs we have gotten have been had Oliver been in the band? Because as much as I love the recent albums, there on the last couple, it does kind of feel like Jeff could inject more of his presence. Uh, Philip J. Packman says, I have the CD version and I'm very pleased with it. Worth buying if you're a fan of the band. Let's see. I think there were also some comments in groups that I shared this to. I'll see if I can read a few of those. But yeah, so far it looks like the reception for this has been generally pretty good. Doug also said, great song, sound, and great packaging. Congrats to Oliver for getting this out into the world. Hans de Cruz says, I really like it. Wakeman in the house, at least it sounds the same way. Jesus Martin Arroyo says, I prefer Yes music to be guitar oriented. For me, the keyboards are too prominent here. That's a fair take. That's something I've never really thought about. Like when it comes to Yes music, do I prefer to be guitar oriented or keyboard oriented? Because I don't know. I guess when I think of Yes music, I just kind of think of it generally going hand in hand. I mean, maybe Jesus would maybe really loves Magnification since that doesn't have a keyboardist on it. But yeah, I mean that's a great album either way. But yeah, I don't know. I think back to even though it's ABWH, that song "Fist of Fire." You have the original version, and the keyboards are prominent on it, and then you get the alternate mix from the In a Word Yes box set where you can hear the guitar better. And I think I prefer that alternate mix. But yeah, I don't know if that's really indicative of whether I prefer guitar oriented or keyboard oriented when it comes to Yes. I'd be very curious to hear what other people think as well. Let's see. Oh, Davey says I was going to rank all the Yes albums on my YouTube channel, Cretan Classics, but now I'm holding out until Aurora comes out, and I'm definitely adding From a Page into the mix as well. Yeah, it's interesting how we're like a month and a half away from Aurora coming out. I know I've been waiting for Aurora for a long time, like a new Yes album for a long time, but it kind of feels like we get this From a Page expanded edition and then Aurora kind of close together, like just a few weeks closer, and you'd basically be looking at the gap between Keys to Ascension 2, uh, kind of a Lost Yes album, funny enough, and then Open Your Eyes, not in terms of what the music might sound like, but in terms of a short gap between these releases. I almost kind of wish that the gap were bigger so that we could spend more time with this expanded edition. But maybe I shouldn't say that because I've been so eager to hear the Aurora album. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Levi says, I have the CD set and I really like the packaging. The artwork is fantastic. And also says, I don't always get excited about inserts, but I love the art cards. Are the inserts larger in the vinyl set? So in my vinyl set, I don't see any additional cards or anything. Like in these vinyl jacket pockets, you basically get the what I showed earlier in the photos. You get the LP1 sleeve, which shows the lineup on one side and the lyrics on the other side. And the other one, the LP2 sleeve, has the essay from Oliver. Yeah, I really like how big this release is. This vinyl jacket and the sleeves. I imagine on the CD release, you probably have the essay in a booklet instead, right? Is that how it's laid out? But yeah, really cool to have this. Let's see, are there any other comments I wanted to check out? See some of these other groups. Matt Frower says, love it, got the double vinyl, sounds amazing, great to hear more from this lineup. Vic Johansson says, love it, looking forward to Aurora, but Benoit and Oliver were a much better fit with House, Squire, and White. Yeah, I mean, some people prefer that lineup. I enjoy the music from either lineup, but yeah, this was an era that was definitely worth revisiting, and I'm glad that it got its revisit. You know, let's see. Any other groups? Oh, I see. Simon Caplehorn said, brilliant album, nice variety of tracks. Some rocky, others softer. Some excellent keyboard playing by Oliver Wakeman. Lovely piano, and good to hear the Moog again. Also, great to hear Benoit's vocals and indeed Chris Squire on lead vocals on 2 tracks. Many congrats to Oliver for driving this project and getting it released. Yes, definitely. Very grateful that Oliver was able to get all of that taken care of. And props to Carl Groom as well for his involvement in the project. So really great stuff. But yeah, I guess that's I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I want to say about the album. I'm sure that this is an album that people will keep talking about. It's an album that was kind of a lost Yes album, but now it's accessible. People can hear it, and a lot of it sounds like some of what people are looking for when it comes to the classic Yes sound. Owen Davey says Carl Groom from the underrated prog band Threshold. Nice. All right. So yeah, definitely recommend getting the expanded and remastered version of From a Page, whether you already have the original version or not. It's worth having in your collection. And I love having the vinyl version because it's all like very cool to have to be able to hold all like this. Um, that large vinyl jacket. Oh, Davey says he's an awesome guitarist and songwriter, referring to Carl Grimm. So yeah, and again, hopefully we get those two tracks that Oliver mentioned in the essay in some form. Hopefully we get From a Page live as a live album at some point, and looking forward to that Live from Leon re-release whenever it might come out. And fingers crossed that Mercury does a Fly From Here re-release with Benoit's vocals, those original versions. And who knows, maybe some bonus material for that as well that we don't see on here. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. This was a pretty good discussion. I'm glad to have talked about this album. Like I said, it would have been silly if we didn't talk about it before doing our Union 35th anniversary discussion, which we've planned for April 30th, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Feel free to share your thoughts on Union. There will be a post and whatnot. Even if you chime in the comments here, I'll try to, go back and see if there's anything that might be interesting to read about regarding Union. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Listen to From a Page, expanded and remastered edition. Get it from Mercury, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.